Hi, I'm Vicki Westling here with City Speaks. City Speaks is taking a special tour today. We're going to look at the North County Water District. We're going to talk about the different things that have happened in the city of Dunkirk. Our special guests are our Director of Public Works, Randy Woodbury, and our Mayor, Wilfred Rosas. So here we are in front of our new water tower out by the water filtration plant with the city of Dunkirk. And so we're going to be talking to our mayor and Randy shortly. Okay, Randy, tell us what's going on here.
Okay, a lot of things are going on, Vicki. You met Vicki. I'll introduce myself. I'm Randy Woodbury. I'm the city's Director of Public Works, and one of my responsibilities under the great leadership of Mayor Rosas is the Dunkirk Water Filtration Plant. And we're going to take a tour where the distribution of great Dunkirk City water is now going to the North County Water District and heading over to Brockton. The tank behind you that has a beautiful city logo was built last year, and that's the tank that uses clean city water to wash the filter beds that are in the buildings behind us. But also along the wall here, I want to talk about how the history of Dunkirk's water intake. Behind the power plant, which wasn't there 120 years ago when the water pipe was built, the water pipe actually goes through some of their land to the left of the power plant and out next to the lighthouse behind there, and another half a mile out into Lake Erie, so that the intake is under 30 feet of water. At that point, the water naturally is quite clear. And 100 years ago, the water came through that 36-inch inside diameter pipe and came to the water plant here. It wasn't filtered. It was so clean that it could go directly into the drinking and fire protection system. In the 1920s, the filter plant was built, and we've been filtering city water ever since. The technology at the filter plant has been improved, that we now filter with granulated activated carbon. It's the same type of material that removes all traces of organic material, the same type of material that's used in Brita brand water filters. So the entire water plant that can produce up to 10 million gallons per day produces water that would be the same as what you would get out of a Brita water filter. Really, it takes any trace of impurity out of the water and makes it really fantastic. And so we have a very long pipe. Now, the pipe was in danger. When Mayor Rosas was councilman at large, he secured $100,000 from the county bed tax money to shore up this wall. And behind the water plant where that was in danger, there's a rock core revetment. And maybe we can kind of walk over there and take a look down the wall and see that. It's kind of interesting. It's doing very well. You can see where this wall was built in the 1920s, and it started to lean a little bit. And you can, if you go lean over the edge, you can see the rocks that now are holding up the wall behind the water plant. So you can zoom right along the edge of the wall, and that's called a rock core revetment. And it will stabilize the wall behind the water plant for quite a number of years. And that was an emergency situation that Mayor Rosas addressed as councilman at large and personally secured the money to get that done. So he saved the water plant, and we have a wonderful water plant as I described. And can't find the mayor here, but maybe
he's right back there. But okay. Let me ask you a question, Randy.
Sure.
If we talk about now the lake and the water that's coming in, this tank that we have here now, we're going to supply water to everybody in the North County Water District who's a member of the North County Water District. What does this tank do?
This tank is a maintenance tank to clean the filter beds. There are 8 filter beds in that building right behind the tank, and they can run for 100 hours. And there are two or three processes ahead of the filtration system to remove some of the larger particles, and then the filter finishes it completely, and then it's disinfected and sent out to the system. It's disinfected before the filters and disinfected after the filters, so that it can't become contaminated even in its route over to Brockton. But every 100 hours, we have to take 75,000 gallons out of this water tank and flow it backwards through one of the filters to clean it out. And that filtered water then gets pumped to the wastewater plant and is disposed of at the other end of the city where our wastewater plant is. So naturally the lake flows from west to east, from left to right. So the city fathers were very wise to put the city intake over on the left side, and then down lake from there is the discharge of wastewater. And someday we'll take a tour of the wastewater. At the wastewater plant, we remove 95% of all pollutants that can happen through city industries or use of our water, because all the water that goes out, up to 10 million gallons per day, is used, and then it comes back down as used water, and that has to be treated at the wastewater plant. Right now we're going to talk about just the drinking water, and then but our wastewater plant does the final finishing of the water, so that it can go back and get recycled into the lake.
Okay, so let's start our tour to see what's happening with our North County Water
Do
District.
we want to have the mayor say anything while we're standing right here?
Mayor?
I just wanted to say how proud I am of Randy Woodbury, and it's an honor to be working with this man. He truly cares about the city, and he's very knowledgeable and all of our infrastructure here in the city of Dunkirk, and I'm very proud to have him as part of my team.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, all right, let's head out. Come on.
Just mention this monument, just quick. As soon as this car goes by, we'll hit action. Need one of those boards. And action. Okay, we're leaving the driveway to the tank, and I want to just slowly go by and look out the right window at a memorial. It's the 40th anniversary of a very sad incident in the city of Dunkirk, and fireman Daniel Anson lost his life in a storm in August of 1979. And this is the 40th anniversary of that. This year. We're going to be moving that monument. It was put there temporarily in 1989. The Anson family would like it moved into the central part of Memorial Park, and we're working with the Anson family to do that. But it's a tribute to a hero, a lost hero, and we're going to replace that and treat it right. So I just wanted to mention that the water department, we have a lot of underground facilities near that monument, so it's time to move it so that it can't be disturbed by some of those underground water facilities, and put it really where it was intended to be put back in 1979, 1989. But just Mr. Anson lost his life, fighting a fire during a terrific storm in 1979, and wanted to pay tribute to him after 40 years. We're now passing the water plant, the filtration plant's on the right, the chemical plant's further back to the right, and where we treat the water. On the left is a building with blue doors on it that has 4 pumps in there that can pump up to 10 million gallons a day into the system. And then we're gonna take Brigham Road up here, and we're following the route of the North County Water District. Underneath Route 5 here is a 20-inch water line of finished water, and it's being pumped under pressure. Where we are right, and the pressure in the water line depends on where you are elevation-wise. So we're at the highest pressure zone in the city right now. The water pressure, if we measured it at a fire hydrant or anywhere, would be about 80 pounds per square inch right now. And then we're going to follow the route of the new line of the North County Water District, which connects to the 20-inch line on Brigham Road. Has been there for probably 80 years and working well. It's been cleaned recently, and we have so we're going to go up to from here. We can take a break, and then we'll resume at Willow Road. We are looking now on Willowbrook Avenue, where a brand new 2 million gallon elevated water tank was built by the city to replace a 500,000 gallon 75-year-old tank. So we have a lot of capacity there. That's the main storage. There's an identical amount of water on the westerly side of the city at Benton Street. So we have 4 million gallons of elevated storage in the city ready to go. There's also 400,000 gallons at the industrial park at a tank there that's important to protect the fire protection for Nestle Purina, for Stericycle, for the North County Highway Garage, for Inks Incorporated, for the airport, things like that. So we've got 3 elevated storage tanks in addition to the smaller tank that we started with. Now these are finished water that people are going to drink. And the first tank that we saw, that's for cleaning the filter plant. Rule of thumb is to have as much elevated storage as you possibly can. Should you have an interruption at the water plant, you have instant available fire protection from a large tank like that. And this is the tank that feeds the westerly direction of the North County Water District. And we're going to just follow that route. So we're going to follow a 20-inch line. We'll just keep rolling. And we're now on Willowbrook Avenue with a 20-inch water line coming. The water goes to that tank and away from that tank. Okay, 20-inch line. Now we're on Brigham Road, where the same 20-inch line has come from the water plant, and it feeds a wonderful industry, Universal Steel. They've done big improvements. They've just put $10 million. Mayor Rosas and his development team were on a photo opportunity to show that new addition, and the mayor's development team is fully helpful to this plant to keep them. You see all the cars, those are jobs. And the product they produce is American-made steel. So we're very proud of this plant that the mayor and his team has been able to keep in Dunkirk. It's got a long history, and the city water line that nobody sees, but it's 4 feet underneath where we're driving, is very important for the operation of that plant. And this is where the North County Water District connected right here at this fire hydrant on the corner of Willow Road and Brigham Road. We're going to follow a 16-inch water line for many miles right into Brockton. So we have all new fire hydrants. This used to be an area in the city of Dunkirk that did not have fire protection. In the agreement with the North County Water District, the city got a new line through. We're still in city property right now. The Willow Road, until we get to the town line, is all city of Dunkirk. And all of these businesses did not have adequate fire protection. So as an ancillary benefit from the North County Water District, we have these brand new hydrants, and they flow at about 3,000 gallons a minute, which is excellent fire protection for all of these houses and for any additional industry that might want to come by, and also for the steel plant that we passed. So we have all new. Obviously the road needs a little bit of work. This water line was just built last year, so there's some things to do to clean it up. We call that a punch list, and we have some landscaping to do. It'll be the contractor that'll do that. Now we're approaching the city line, and we're going to see a slab of concrete in the ground, and we can just briefly talk about that. And I'll just pull over and let this car out. But the slab of concrete in the ground is a meter pit. It's called a master meter, and that's where the 16-inch line is metered, and it's right between where the city ends and the town of Dunkirk begins. And then beyond the town of Dunkirk, we have the town of Portland and the town of Pomfret that also are getting water from the Willowbrook tank through that master meter. Right now it's flowing about 400,000 gallons a day that we're selling to Brockton from here. So essentially like a taxi cab, the meter's running. If we don't have to go in that pit to read the meter. There's a radio inside there, and our guys can read that meter remotely without having to enter that pit. And our city treasurer has asked us to read it every day, and our average is about almost 500,000 gallons going westerly in that direction that heads to the Brockton prison. And again, we're getting all of the area that we're driving now had no water lines. So we're going to see evidence of those water lines. The only thing people recognize to know there's a water line underground are fire hydrants. And we're going to see some of those. And here's one on the right. And And that's an area of Willow Road in the town of Dunkirk that didn't have fire protection or city water until now. So we're taking, Willow Road, this is the route. Underneath the road is a 16-inch water line that runs all the way to Brockton. We're going to trace that route. Mayor, got anything to add?
No, it's good to show our city residents exactly how the city connects into the North County Water District. There was a lot of time, work, and effort put into this by all the municipalities involved, and we're very proud to be the supplier of water. Again, this increases revenues for our Fund 2 in the city of Dunkirk, and it helps us to keep our water rates for city residents low.
Any questions?
Well, I guess that the only question that I would have is, as you were going through all of the different elements of what had to be done with the size of the pipes, and we hear about the size of the pipes, and we talk about a 16-inch pipe. That's pretty good, and I understand that the town of Dunkirk has just authorized a larger water pipe. How do those two compare?
Good question. We're doing the westerly beginning of the North County Water District route right now, and out to bid is the easterly section of that. And there's going to be a new tank similar to the one where this tour is going to end. We're going to see a 500,000 gallon water tank that's used to be in the area of Brockton water that now has city water in it. And I'll talk a little bit about why Brockton chose it was more economical and for many reasons to go with city water versus their older reservoir. So it was a good partnership between Brockton and the city through the North County Water District administered by the county. We had both county executives, Borello and Vince Horgan, were very helpful in that endeavor. So I think the mayor and I have gone to the meetings and worked that out. So the 16-inch water line brings plenty of water for Brockton and even beyond. What the town of Dunkirk was worried about is the original bid going east was going to use a less expensive 8-inch diameter pipe, and they were able to find enough money to go with a 12-inch diameter pipe, which will allow them to put a 500,000 gallon tank up on Miller Road in the town of Sheridan to go a little further. So our Dunkirk city water is in such high demand that they wanted to put a bigger pipe so they can get more of it. So that was the answer to that question, and it'll go to the tank. And then you want to have a big pipe coming from the tank to your fire hydrants, because your fire protection is done as a direct flow by gravity from the tanks that you can fill slowly, and you can empty the tanks very rapidly should God forbid you need it for fire protection. That's the idea of having a tank at the end of your line on a water system. And we saw several in the city. There's going to be a new one up on Miller Road on the east part, and then hence why they went from an 8-inch to a 12-inch. They found the extra money to do that. And we have a 16-inch water line here that replaced an old 8-inch line that, because it was so old, it wasn't 8 inches anymore. It gets inside the line called tuberculation, almost like a rust situation that makes the line constricted. So we were not able to get fire protection out to this area on Route 5, and the 16-inch water line replaced the very old 8-inch line, and it's working very, very well.
When will we be connecting with the east town?
That contract's out to bid, the mayor and I were at the meeting. They expect to have that online by the end of this year, 2019.
And now, Mayor, you've done a lot when we talk about the North County Water District, getting them involved, the things that it's going to help, how it's going to help the city with the revenue. Tell me about some of the hurdles, some of the challenges that you had in getting this to happen.
Well, not everybody was on board with moving forward with the North County Water District. There were many issues involved. One of the primary issues was the water rate that we were going to be charging them. They had a formula they came up with, which, everybody felt that it was a fair formula, but there was some people that didn't think that it was fair. So there was a lot of issues that came up out of that one issue, and we had to decipher it all. But in the end, it was good leadership at the highest level. The state was funding this project. In fact, this is a project, again, that the state is using as a model for municipalities across the state. Different counties are using this as a model now. So this is a good thing for not just the city, but for other taxpayers. It keeps their rates a little bit lower as well. And everybody is getting good potable and good treated water.
So collaboration is the key, and that's one of the things that you've been doing since before you were mayor. And working with the North County Water District has been, it not only has been a challenge, but it's been rewarding in the long run for our residents, because our water rates are not going to go up, correct?
That's correct. Our water rates will not be affected by the rates that we're charging the North County Water District. So, in essence, like I said, we've gained more customers, and as a result, our revenues will increase for the city. But I think just as importantly, Vicki, it's important to point out that there are people who live out in the townships that did not have access to good potable drinking water, and now they will have that. And we have spent a lot of money upgrading our water plant. We're very proud of the job that's been done there, and our water plant now is one of the top in this region, and we're very proud of that as well.
And of course, to hear Randy talk, we have the best water around, so that's all a good thing for everybody.
Yes, and that's not just my opinion. That's a scientific, measurable fact of what impurities we take out. The long list of organic material that can be in any water supply, by the time they get through our granulated activated carbon, our health department reports say non-detectable, 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 non-detectable. So any legacy pollutants that are in Lake Erie from back in the 1960s when things weren't done right, now the lake has come back alive since then, but some of those things are still lingering, but we take them out, they're gone. Now we're approaching the Portland pump station, where all of the area we just drove, now we've been driving miles and miles, and through many of those miles, it was Brockton water before. Now in this tank on my left is City of Dunkirk water, and it never had City of Dunkirk water in there until recently. And then there's a small pump station, looks like about the size of a trailer, designed and installed. It's working very well. There are two pumps in there that take city water through this 16-inch water line that flows by gravity from the tank that we started on a Willowbrook right to this pump station on the left here, and then it pumps it up into the Brockton system. So we have everything by gravity to here from the Willowbrook tank, and then this station lifts it up into the Brockton, which is at a higher elevation than Dunkirk. So this pump station is critical. The mayor and I were at the ribbon cutting for this pump station some time ago with all the dignitaries and all the different towns that cooperated. And like the mayor said, we're breaking ground of cooperation between municipalities, which was hard to do before. And the mayor ran under the pro North County Water District platform, and there was some resistance, honestly, within the city to should we do this or not. The mayor studied it. We hired a consultant from the college, Dr. Peter Reynoldt, who's the head of the economics department, and the county actually wound up paying him, but he's somebody that I knew from teaching at the college as a colleague, and he's very well respected in the water industry. He's done a lot of research in water systems in California, where our water system is $1 million per year, multi-million-dollar per year industry. In California, one farm can be a multi-billion-dollar industry for water. Water's pretty scarce in California. In some areas, we're lucky to have a source like Lake Erie. Great Lakes water, 50% of Canadians drink out of the Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes represent 20% of the fresh water in the world, and 95% of the fresh water in North America. So here we are, right on our doorstep, with a great resource like that. It's not only for recreation and to view the beauty of that lake, but also it makes excellent drinking water. And that's not just my opinion, as I said. That's scientifically proven. I got the data to show you that we got really excellent water.
Okay, so we're going to take a break now until we get to wherever, right?
Okay, we've just driven many miles. We're at the two prisons that are located in the just outside the village of Brockton. They really help the economic basis of this area, and there's a lot of jobs here, and also they're doing, the idea is to do corrections. I mean, people wind up here, and hopefully their lives are corrected at this point. But it's a pretty serious business. You can see concertina wire around here, and lots of City of Dunkirk residents work in this prison. That's their livelihood. But over here on the left, you'll see a blue tank. A big campus corrections like this needs a lot of water, and that water tank stays filled up. Like I said, that water tank being full would give fire protection for this entire campus instantly. You don't have to have a pump. You can fill that tank slowly, but if you need the water out of it, gravity will pull that water out of there very quickly. The prison has asked us to monitor the water level in that tank for them, and we're going to work out a telemetry system so we can do that. So we have a partnership between the City of Dunkirk and the New York State Department of Corrections to work and make sure they got water. Before the North County Water District went west and came into Brockton, the experts in the Department of Corrections from New York State visited the Dunkirk water plant to give it their seal of approval to see that it had redundant systems. There's essentially two water plants within that plant. If any one thing fails, there's backup systems to backup systems. So we can produce water for this correctional facility at all times. They had to be sure of that. And we were able to assure them of that, and now that tank used to have reservoir water from a creek in Brockton, and now it has Lake Erie water filtered through granulated activated carbon from the City of Dunkirk. So the prison is happy about it, the city's happy about it. There's still some things we want to do in terms of electronic monitoring, but this is a big deal. This is a big facility, big economic impact in this area, and by the city providing the water, we hope we've stabilized that aspect of this facility.
Now, Randy, let me ask you a very elementary question, because if I were in fourth grade, I would say, with all the water that we're supplying, we're drawing it out of Lake Erie. Is Lake Erie going to go dry?
Well, I do teach water resources at the college, and it's right now it's running very high, the water level of Lake Erie. So Lake Erie is not in any kind of danger of going dry. The Great Lakes were formed during the Ice Age that started 2.5 million years ago and ended about 10,000 years ago. So if it's going to go dry, it might take, it started about 2.5 million years ago and ended about 10,000 years ago. So if it's on its way to go dry, it's not going to happen for probably about that same amount of time. So ask me the same question 2.5 million years from now, and then we'll have an answer. But I think we're pretty safe between now and then.
Okay, I'll make a note, but if I forget, you remind me, all right?
Okay, we've just taken a drive up Route 380, and we're on Burr Road, where we're on one of the three abandoned Brockton reservoirs. It's a beautiful lake. This is the newest of the three reservoirs. But a lot of the upland reservoirs are being abandoned. If you take a look at a satellite photo, Vicki asked me which one, might go dry. We don't want any of these to go dry, but if you take a look at a satellite photo, you can see Lake Erie very easily. You can't really spot these small reservoirs that used to be the entire water supply for the village of Brockton and the prison and things like that. And they recognize that this does have more of a danger to go dry and to have other things happen to it. than Lake Erie does. There's construction equipment around here, things like that that could affect the quality of this water. What we're looking, the berm in the far is an earthen dam. This is Slippery Rock Creek that's been dammed up to make this reservoir, and there's another small reservoir up behind us, and they do have some dam safety concerns, I believe, to decommission this as a reservoir and make it safe. This is what Brockton decided, that they, rather than do a lot of money into this, that they're going to get Dunkirk city water. So I wanted to show you the reservoir. There's a reservoir very much like this in Silver Creek, or south of Silver Creek, that was abandoned about 25 years ago because they had similar issues, and they get water from Lake Erie now as well. And Silver Creek and Hanover, instead of being dependent on a smaller reservoir, they have the large supply from Lake Erie. Northeast Pennsylvania did the same thing. They had a reservoir very much like this, and they instead are now taking water directly from Lake Erie and have not using the reservoir. Northeast Pennsylvania is using their reservoir outlet to make hydroelectricity. Maybe Brockton could use to do the same thing. There's probably some creative ideas that Brockton could have with a water body like that, but it's an artificial water body, and Lake Erie is a natural water body. So which would you prefer? The tendency, and also the bottom of these reservoirs are glacial clays, and they tend to have iron and manganese in those clays that can, in the summertime when that water gets warm, those elements can dissolve into the water and then precipitate out in the system, and you can get rusty water and manganese water downstream at the higher pressure ends of that. So one of the reasons Northeast abandoned their reservoirs because they were having iron and manganese problems in their pipes that were caused from the glacial clays leaching into the water supply, and you can't filter that out. It's maybe our plant probably could filter that out with granulated activated carbon, but the basic sand filters that these plants were using couldn't make this water quality as high as we're able to do with the granulated activated carbon, which is expensive. The activated carbon costs the city another $20,000 a year to do. So this reservoir is now abandoned, one of 3 reservoirs that fed Brockton over the years, and now they feel, and we feel, that they've got a more reliable supply without having to put a lot of money into a reservoir that had some issues with it. Did I answer your question, Vicki, about which one, about Lake Erie's not likely to run out of water?
Yes, it did, and I really appreciate that. And I think that now that we look at the different reservoirs, or at least at this one, that will also be protected because it will not be depleted of water. Is that correct?
This reservoir? This reservoir is not going to be a water supply anymore. What Brockton chooses to do with this reservoir will be up to them and up to the regulations for dam safety and other things like that. So I don't know. It is an opportunity sometimes to reuse a reservoir for other uses, like Northeast Pennsylvania is using their reservoir for hydroelectric power generation. The tendency in the United States is to, instead of building dams, which peaked in the 1960s, is to remove dams. They cause an environmental effect, and they change the ecology of the stream. So about 500 dams per year are being removed in the United States, whereas thousands were being built per year in the 1960s. So it's a whole different look at damming up a water body. What is the environmental effect? In many places, they're going back to the natural stream versus a reservoir. It is a pretty object, but there are a lot of complicated issues, and I can't pretend to know all of the things that Brockton thought about, but we're happy that they chose us, and we are committed to be a reliable source for them once they chose us to be their source instead of this reservoir.
Very good. Thank you.
Just cool. You can pan and see Dunkirk. Your panorama that we're going on right now, you can see the tank at the prison. You can pan over and you can see the NRG power plant. So between the prison and the power plant is the entire North County Water District, Westerly District, and you can see Canada all the way across Lake Erie. And we just looked at a reservoir that's relatively small. For as far as the eye can see left and right, you see Lake Erie.
Okay. All right. Well, here we are with City Speaks with Randy Woodbury, our director of DPW, and our mayor, Wilfred Rosas. We're at the end of the line for the North County Water District. And behind us, we have what, Randy? Explain that to us.
We have the beige-colored water tank holds a 500,000 gallon of water. And Vicki, where'd that water come from?
That water came from Lake Erie.
And through what city?
Through Brockton?
Came from the city of Dunkirk's water filtration plant that has granulated activated carbon. Is it a high quality water?
It is. It's the best water around with that granulated activated carbon.
Very good. All right. I might have mentioned that before, but I wanted to mention it again. So that at the end of the line is an elevated tank, and because Brockton is at a higher elevation above Lake Erie than Dunkirk, it had to be pumped. We saw the pump station at the Portland tank by Lake Erie State Park, and that pump station fills that tank. There's a radio antenna that communicates to that pump station and keeps that water filled with City of Dunkirk water. Behind that is an abandoned filtration plant that was connected to the Brockton Reservoir that we saw just beyond the hill there. And so Brockton, instead of putting millions of dollars into their reservoir and into their filtration plant, built this tank, and we pump into it through the pump station that we saw and the 16-inch line that flows by gravity along Route 5. And this is a tank that can provide instant fire protection and instant water supply throughout the entire village of Brockton that now uses City of Dunkirk water and all of the points in between. When we were up on the hill and we panned between the prison tank and the city power plant, we could see all of the area that now has potable water from the City of Dunkirk, and we have plenty of capacity with the improvements that Mayor Rosas has made to that plant. We have a 40-year contract to be the sole supplier both Brockton, and then as we build to the east, we're going to have a very similar situation on the east, and we're very proud that this whole area of Brockton, our wonderful neighbors, now is drinking city water, and we promise to keep that water very high quality for them and keep it on tap at all times.
Okay, and as we close out City Speaks for today, Mayor, I'm going to let you have the final word. Tell us a little bit about what you think, what you want the residents to know.
I just want to, again, say how important it is for me to know as mayor that our residents know have a little bit of knowledge, at least everything that we have put in to making sure that we are the supplier of water for the North County Water District, all the different municipalities that we're going to be supplying water to, all the piping that was included. And it's good to have a DPW director who understands that, has very, very much knowledge in this field. And the city's in good hands with our DPW director, Randy Woodbury. I'm very proud as mayor to have him as part of my team. And thank you.
Well, and as a part of your team, I think Randy and I can both agree that we're proud to have you as our mayor. So thank you. And thank you for watching City Speaks.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Mayor.